On a quiet summer night in 2025, the streets of Lancaster Boulevard lay still. Streetlights cast dim glows over rows of parked cars, and the faint hum of a distant freeway was all that stirred the air. But in one small apartment, something unthinkable was unfolding. A single light burned past midnight, casting shadows that hid a tragedy. Neighbors later recalled hearing faint sounds, a dull thud, perhaps a stifled cry, before silence swallowed the night. By dawn, a figure slipped out, dragging something heavy into the darkness. He moved with purpose, as if every step had been planned. Inside that apartment, a home once filled with the giggles of three young boys, ages 10, 7, and 5, now stood eerily quiet. The curtains were shut, the door locked, and the woman who had poured her heart into protecting her children was gone. What happened that night would unravel into one of Lancaster's most chilling mysteries, a story of fear, control, and a desperate act that shattered a family. Shayla Elizabeth Cabrera came to the United States from Peru with a dream. At 34, she carried the weight of hope for a safer, brighter future for her sons. She was a devoted mother, known for her warmth and resilience. Neighbors spoke of her kindness, how she'd share homemade Peruvian dishes or help with small favors despite her own struggles. Her apartment, though modest, was a haven of love, adorned with her boys' drawings and family photos that brightened the walls. But beneath this warmth, a shadow loomed. Her husband, Josimar, presented a charming facade to the world, a doting father, a steady partner. Yet behind closed doors, a darker reality festered. Years earlier, in Peru, Shayla had filed a report against Josimar for abuse. She'd endured his anger, his control, even violence toward their youngest son. Hoping a new life in California would change things, she moved forward with courage. But the abuse followed her across borders. Friends noticed her spark dimming. Her smiles grew forced, her eyes distant. One confidant, Maria Delgado, later shared that Shayla felt trapped. Josimar had warned he'd take the children if she ever left. Despite the fear, Shayla's love for her boys kept her strong. She dreamed of them growing up free, safe, and loved, a dream she held onto even as her world grew darker. By the summer of 2025, Shayla made a choice. She was done living in fear. She began saving money, confiding in trusted friends, and planning to leave Josimar for good. On August 9th, she called her family in Peru, her voice trembling with resolve. She was ready to go to the police. It was a call filled with hope, and the last time her mother would hear her voice. The tension in the Lancaster apartment had been building for weeks. Shayla's decision to leave Josimar and report his abuse set something in motion, something he couldn't accept. To him, losing control was unthinkable. Friends noticed him growing colder, more withdrawn, in the days before August 9, 2025. That night, while the neighborhood slept, tragedy struck. Inside the apartment, as their three boys dreamed in their beds, Josimar's rage turned deadly. Court records remained sealed, but investigators later described a scene of deliberate violence. A knife, wielded with chilling precision, ended Shayla's life. It wasn't a fleeting moment of anger, it was calculated, final. By morning, the apartment was silent. The boys woke to a world forever changed, unaware their mother was gone. Josimar, however, was already moving to cover his tracks. He wrapped Shayla's body in a thick sheet, securing it tightly to hide his crime. Neighbors heard faint noises in the early hours, soft thuds, the creak of a door, the low rumble of a car engine. Around 3 a.m., a neighbor, up late, saw something strange. Josimar scrubbing the trunk of his gray sedan under the dim glow of a streetlight. She thought little of it then, but that moment would later haunt her. A nearby security camera captured the truth. In grainy footage timestamped 4:15 a.m., a man struggled to drag a heavy, wrapped object across the pavement. His movements were labored but deliberate as he loaded it into his car and drove off. That object, investigators later confirmed, was Shayla. The footage became the heart of the case, undeniable evidence of a betrayal. Josimar drove into the night, heading toward the Angeles National Forest, a sprawling wilderness of canyons and cliffs. By day, it's a place of rugged beauty. By night, it's a perfect hiding ground for the unthinkable. Deep in the forest, where no headlights pierced the dark, Josimar stopped. He pulled the bundle from the trunk and dragged it to a steep ravine. there, he pushed Shayla's body over the edge, letting it tumble into the brush below. The woman who had loved him, raised his children, and fought for a better life was left behind, abandoned in the cold. He drove back home, where his sons still slept, unaware of the void now at the center of their lives. By August 12th, Shayla's friends grew frantic. Her silence was unnatural. She was always in touch, especially about her boys. They filed a missing person report, and deputies visited the apartment. Josimar's calm demeanor cracked as his stories unraveled. First, he claimed Shayla had been detained by immigration. Then, he said she'd run off with someone else. Each lie collapsed under scrutiny, and detectives knew this was no missing person case. It was murder. As detectives dug deeper, Shayla's friends revealed a painful truth. For years, she had endured Josimar's abuse, threats, control, and violence that left her living in fear. Her plan to leave him and protect her boys had pushed him to a breaking point. On August 13th, the case shifted. A neighbor's security camera footage showed Josimar dragging a heavy bundle to his car in the dead of night. That chilling image turned a missing person case into a homicide investigation. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department sprang into action, coordinating with search teams to comb the vast Angeles National Forest, a daunting 700,000 acres of rugged terrain. The urgency grew when detectives learned Josimar and the three boys were missing. Fearing he'd fled the country, authorities issued alerts through Mexican and Peruvian consulates. Tips suggested he was heading to South America. On August 16th, a breakthrough came. Search and rescue teams found a bundle of fabric down a remote embankment in the forest. It matched the footage exactly. There, among the rocks, lay Shayla's body. The discovery shattered her community. Vigils sprang up across Lancaster, with candles and photos honoring a woman who had chased a dream of safety, only to meet a brutal end. That same day, word came from Peru. The Cabrera boys were safe, taken into protective custody. But Josimar was still at large, slipping across borders to evade capture. He was briefly detained in Mexico, then Peru, but released each time due to unfiled charges. The delay frustrated investigators, but they pressed on, building a case with phone records, witness accounts, and forensic evidence from the apartment. On August 21st, Los Angeles County prosecutors charged Josimar with murder, adding a special allegation for using a knife. An Interpol red notice went out, marking him as a global fugitive. The manhunt intensified. Peruvian police scoured highways and cities, tracking every lead. For 2 weeks, Josimar stayed one step ahead, but the pressure was relentless. On August 28th, he walked into a Lima police station and surrendered. Handcuffed and silent, he was led away as cameras captured the moment. The boys, now with their grandmother in Los Angeles, faced a future without their mother. The extradition process began, a slow path to bring Josimar back to California, where he faces up to 26 years to life if convicted. Shayla's story lives on in her boys, her community, and the fight for justice. Her courage, her love, her dreams, they won't be forgotten. Her family waits for closure, holding on to the memory of a woman who gave everything for a better life. Stay with us for more stories that remind us of the strength behind every struggle.